looking for the truth, the fact is that we can't be happy with things that don't work. We have to discard things. We have to have a critical level of understanding that certain things aren't going to help us. And in the realm of spiritual practices and the spiritual path, there are certain things which are distractions and could be labelled as spiritual materialism. So to discern these things, these modalities and practices which on one level can help and are effective and can help process past trauma and emotions, these do work. However, what is essential is to understand that the whole purpose of finding freedom, if you want to call it non-duality, is to be free of the storyline of the person, and is to see through the illusion of being a person, to understand that yes, you can process deep emotions and let them go. However, the key is not to have a storyline, so that 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now you don't still hang on to whatever happened to this illusory person, the thought which is just an I. And what really pushes people, generally I've found through many conversations and through my own experiences, having a level of suffering and pain pushes us like a search engine to never settle with anything that isn't based on absolute truth, because pain wakes us up, as Maharaj says. Pleasure puts us to sleep. And in our world today there is so much emphasis, so many people trying to sell us the Maya illusion of materialism on a mental and physical level. And so this is, in the Western world, these ideas are being pushed into spirituality, and so it takes a level of discernment to understand, to find your inner guru. But all of this is very simple. The simplicity is in stillness and in silence, or at least having a quiet mind, in listening to your inner guru, in practicing being free of names and forms, in terms of not being interested in the egoic structures of status, in terms of titles, to understand that that's just a trap, and that, like a sugary drink, they give temporary positive feelings, but they actually isolate us. Ego can be said to stand for edging God out. It's a useful way of remembering that every time you feel that positive feeling from feeling that you're better or worse from somebody else, that you're separate, you're actually edging God out. Your individuality is separating you. So the inner peace that we look for is actually from being free of names and forms, and understanding that actually frees up a lot of power, a lot of energy. And with that energy and power, we should use that not for more materialistic gains, but for spiritual strength, spiritual power. And that is coming from a calm and relaxed place to purify our consciousness, to not think more but to think less, to have a state of not mind, to have a state of empty mind, and to really rely and trust on that. And that's where all of the power, all of the solutions come from. And seeing this and understanding that the power behind creative thought and inspiration is actually pure awareness. emptying your mind, stilling your mind, having a quiet mind, are not things that the material Western mind can easily accept. And having the humility to be free of names and forms and titles and status, and chasing the illusory material dream to the egoic separate self, seems like a weakness. It seems like you're giving up in a way. And from that perspective, yeah, maybe you are. However, you gain all. As Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, give up all and you gain all. And you start to meet more and more people who are on this path and who have empowered themselves by being free of names and forms. And you start to have more and more synchronicities, and solutions and remedies to things in life come quicker and more easily. And the universe supports you. It's one of the areas that not many people talk about with non-duality. Certain people do, like Gary Weber, who's a neuroscientist who also discovered freedom through non-duality. Is that the universe comes to support you, and that this makes a lot of sense when you think about you're not using up your consciousness for conceptual thoughts, trying to strive for solutions, because the individual isn't doing anything anyway. The I thought comes in afterwards. The I thought comes in afterwards, after an action, and says, I created this podcast, I recorded this video, I drove the car. Actually, these thoughts that arise are quite random and not chosen. And that's part of the illusion of being a separate self, which has lots of holes in it. Once you start to know where to look, you can start to practice looking through the illusion of the self until you have more and more confidence in the fact that it's an illusion. And any kind of emotions that might think that it's safer to be a separate self fade away, and you're pushed towards the understanding that a separate self with free will is just an illusion. And that's where all of your freedom lies. Of course, it seems paradoxical in a way that there seems to be a self here, consciousness animating a body-mind. However, the more and more you look at the illusions, the more and more you understand, the more and more you laugh at the absurdity of claiming that you're doing any of these things really as a separate self. Only really as universal consciousness acting through a body and a mind in a way can you be said to be doing anything. So all of the knowledge of looking through the illusion is becoming more and more accessible to more and more people because of the rise in technology and the rise of education. More and more people are coming to this understanding that was kept secret for thousands of years because it wasn't seen as being something that people, normal people, the masses as it was seen back then, could handle. But now there's a global spiritual awakening. Each generation is standing on the shoulders of giants and has the opportunity to interpret it in their own way. It's easier and simpler for everyone to understand. And so it's an exciting time to be able to share and imbue ourselves with this knowledge, because it means the end of suffering, and it means that we can start to be free of the constant worry that is in all of our lives, and not just through spiritual bypassing or materialism. This is through truly understanding what we are, which is pure consciousness. And pure consciousness is always free, Pure consciousness is never attached to anything and is never held down by anything.